A warm welcome to A Nurse's Lift to Work with Tina and Kate, coaching podcast by two healthcare professionals. We are friends, we are nurses, master NLP coaches, hypnotherapists, parents and business owners. We are busy people juggling many things just like you.
You are in for a treat. We will chat about informal coaching tips, coping strategies, and how to effectively change your mindset and have some fun along the way. So, hop on board with us for A Nurse's Lift to Work.
Hello everyone, I'm Kate.
And I'm Tina.
And you are listening to A Nurse's Lift to Work. And today we have another guest with us. Kendal, please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi everyone, my name is Kendal Andreason. I am a registered nurse and work for the Royal College of Nursing predominantly as the professional lead for acute and emergency care.
Perfect. I have a funny feeling though, Kendal, that's probably not all that you do. Do you do other things as well?
I do. I love my job for the RCN. It's 3.5 days a week though, so that allows me to do a few other things, which is really nice. So I am a faculty member for World Extreme Medicine, which we deliver expedition and wilderness medicine courses to medical professionals of all different types, normally on residential courses in nice places in the UK like the Lake District and Wales, but also around the world in places like Slovenia and Namibia and stuff. So we teach people how to adapt their craft to low resource settings, so that they can work in maybe a humanitarian context or an expedition context or maybe the military. And that is my background. So I started life in the army, and so I am also an army reservist still. And in the army reserves, I am something called a human security advisor. So I try to implement interventions and teach people about how we keep civilians safe during war. That might be through the prevention of conflict-related sexual violence, but it might be through improving food security or health security, or obviously trying to prevent collateral damage and many other human harms. And I love all three of those jobs. They provide me with a really nice combination of kind of practical, positive, strategic, and I feel like I found a really lovely niche for myself, which I'm really pleased about.
Sounds brilliant. And there'll be people listening in, and I think this will be appealing to quite a few people actually, and a surprise to others that you can have these kind of, I think the phrase these days is portfolio careers. So you don't just have like a cradle to the grave career, as in you start in your local hospital down the road, like many nurses do back in the day. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you stay there until you get your retirement party and your lovely cake. And a lot of modern behavior around careers is that we do dip in, dip out. We might have a side hustle and a job. We might have 3 different things that we do, much like you've described. So it's great to see that living example actually of you enjoying all of that.
Thanks. Yeah, I do really, really enjoy the three different parts of my working life. But I did start life, I guess, and I could tell you a bit about that but now if it works. In a real job. Should I say real job? So I joined the army 15 years ago. I commissioned into the Royal Engineers, and so very much had a kind of a full-time serious job for 8 years. I travelled all around the world in that job, leading teams, managing projects, etc. And actually came across to nursing relatively late. So and maybe I'll talk to you about the reasons why I came across if that comes out. But I then spent the last 7 years of my career as a nurse in the army, and then left the end of 2023 when I came across to the RCN, and then got these other, and then stayed on as an Army reservist, and then the job at World Extreme Medicine, predominantly because of that military experience. So yes, I did have that full-time job for a long time, and I love that too. But life changes, doesn't it? And you take advantages as they come up, or you take opportunities, as they come up, and make little changes as you go along to keep your joy going.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that you've had such a variety, and the fact actually you changed from one career path, similar, but just switched roles. So tell us a bit more about the reason. What? Because it is quite a change.
It's a big change. It's huge. Yes. So I was in Afghanistan in 2014. I was there for 9 months, training and mentoring the first group of women to join the Afghan National Army Officer Academy. I was a Royal Engineer at that time. I wasn't teaching anything about engineering in the Army. You're all soldiers first. So I was teaching about being a soldier and being a leader, which was a really interesting project, because they'd never had women in the military before, and there was a lot of resistance for various reasons. Basically, during that time, I loved that job, but I saw medics doing incredible things. So I saw nurses and doctors and our medics saving lives and limbs, and I'd always considered nursing, but I'd gone down this more traditional military path when I went to Sandhurst, but actually during that tour of Afghan, I realised that our colleagues in healthcare were just changing lives and saving lives, and also doing something really tangible with a really obvious output, and really and I thought that would be really satisfying to pursue. And luckily the Army has this incredible scheme where it will send you back to university on your wage, so I had the opportunity to go to transfer to the nursing corps via a university of my choice, and so I jumped on it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing to hear that change is possible, and it is a reality, and it can be a reality for everybody, because certainly we find that the people feel stuck sometimes in doing something that they don't necessarily want to do, because they feel, I don't know, trapped or unsure. They're happy in the security that they've got, and it's a safer place than not knowing. But sometimes that change, that leap it can do amazing things. And look where you are now. Look all the things that you're doing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I in a moment, I'm quite intrigued to explore a bit about how your mind was working at that time, Kendal, because when we in our Facebook group, which is for newly qualified and early career nurses particularly, but in general, when Kate and I are coaching nurses, when you talk to them about their desires for the future and where they see themselves going, they know they want something different from what they have now. Maybe their purpose doesn't chime with them, or something feels out of kilter, but they kind of know that. They know that this isn't right where I am now, but future me, I don't know how to get there, and I maybe even don't know what that looks like. And what I perceive gets in the way sometimes is this fear. A real genuine emotion of fear, because what I've got now is safe and kind of doable, and I know it, and it's in a comfort place for me. And this future thing, whatever it might be, feels like unknown and a bit possibly scary. And you said a great phrase when you were describing how things happen for you, and you were saying opportunities / things became available. And I know within the framework and support of the forces, that's entirely possible and really well put together for people who are in that situation. But what would you say to somebody then who's in that first place where they know they want something to happen? What kind of was going on in your mind, do you think, that made you take a step out of the familiar into this new thing, nursing, and do that training? And
big question. I guess
we're sorry, that was a really big
no,
question.
I think there were two parts. So with my mindset, I think it's almost learned behavior probably for me. So in the army, you move every 2 years. When you're told you deploy, you deploy. You don't really have a choice. So actually constant change is very much the norm. And so I think maybe there's something in us kind of learning that behavior. So actually change is possible, and actually when it happens a lot, it becomes easier almost. It's like a muscle that you exercise perhaps. And so for me, that was probably a mindset thing. I think there's also probably a little bit of so your officer training at Sandhurst is a year long. You basically learn to be ever so confident in your abilities. So and that is absolutely not always the case internally, but it's probably something that we all externalize as army officers. And so kind of self-belief is also useful. And when I think about that, I often think about how so many other people have walked these paths before. If they can do it, I can do it. So I think some of that kind of mental gymnastics is quite useful. But it's easier. That is easier said than done. So I hear that's maybe not within everyone's gift at the moment, but actually if we practice perhaps self-belief and kind of making small changes, maybe they will lead to bigger changes. I don't know. And then I too agree that there are lots of early career nurses and newly registered nurses who perhaps want something different. And I always do advise them, and would always advise that they should just follow their passions, because actually if we're passionate and we love what we do, we'll be better at it, and then therefore we'll be better nurses, and we'll be able to provide better patient care. And wherever you're doing that patient care, you doing it in a way that you enjoy it will just be more beneficial for everyone, yourself, your patients, kind of the healthcare structures that we work within. So try and be fearless. Easier said than done.
Nice though. What would you say, Kate?
I think that's brilliant, because it's, it is absolutely spot on, and it is kind of what we advocate, isn't it, Tina? But, so Kendal, how did you end up from being a nurse in the army to go into the RCN? Was that like a natural move for you?
Good question. So there was another reason probably I transitioned to nursing. I know I kind of did say I really enjoyed the idea of doing something tangible, and that was because within the career path that I was on, I was probably going to more and more kind of be behind a desk and be leadership and be strategic. That's a huge generalization, but more and more that would have been in my future. And I wanted to kind of do something a bit more tangible, and working at the bedside really attracted me in that way. But actually, as I spent more time as a nurse, I realized that actually I really miss the leadership and all kind of the kind of more strategic effect that I actually gave up to come across nursing. And so I became really involved in the RCN when I was still in the army. So I was on the students committee when I was a student, the professional nursing committee, which is one of the governance committees that sits under council within the RCN, and those roles gave me kind of that strategic effect that I was after, alongside the kind of bedside nursing that I was doing. So it was a really nice mix of roles. And so after having those roles and then working, then I became a member of the Defence Nursing Forum on their steering committee. And so I basically had a lot of voluntary member roles within the RCN, which meant that, and this was not necessarily my intent at the time, but it meant that when an opportunity came up at the RCN as I was leaving the military, I was in quite a strong position to apply for that role, because I already understood the RCN, which is actually quite a large, complex beast sometimes. And so that put me in quite a strong position to move across. And also it kind of ticked that having a strategic impact, working for nurses and nursing, which really, really appealed to me.
And it's great to explore that little bit of your life, actually, Kendal, because I'm sitting here feeling delighted because I worked for the Royal College of Nursing for about 3 years, and the way that I found my way into it was very similar. I was part of the Professional Association for Gerontological Nurses, which is the proper way of talking about being an older people's nurse, but I think they've probably changed the name now to make it more accessible. But at the time that happened for me in the early 2000s, we were fighting really hard to get acknowledgement for that set of nurses who often their skills and attributes were not fully recognised compared to maybe an A&E nurse, for example. So, we had a kind of political kind of energy around what we wanted to achieve. And I went to something in Oxford that the RCN ran, and just through networking and chatting found out that there was a senior fellow position coming up on a 2.5-year contract to do something about dignity on the ward. And I'm talking about this because it's really making me think about jumping off that precipice, because at the time, so I found out about this and somebody quietly said to me they thought I'd be good. And I came home on the train and I was really excited, and all my brain was doing was, what if I did that? Wow, that would be, what an opportunity, etc., etc. And the little other part of my brain was going, no, you've got a job as a sister running a hospital. What are you thinking of? You don't want to do that. And so I really argued with myself in and out of kind of this idea of jumping off this precipice. And I'd always had jobs in the NHS up until then, so it felt like a big deal. I went to talk to my boss when I got back, who was singularly unhelpful, because she was one of these people that, liked her nurses to stay below her competence level. I don't mean that rudely, but she was very challenging if she felt that you were getting too big for her boots, is probably the phrase she would have used. But it was an interesting kind of leadership dynamic as I was growing and learning and becoming different as a nurse. And so, I just talked myself into, well, what if you do it? Just do it. 2.5 years, you've got work for 2.5 years, it'll be amazing, exciting, you're going to learn so much, and then there will be work afterwards. And so I did it, and it was one of the best things I could have ever done for me personally, for the advocacy for that career pathway. I was the featured senior fellow 1 year at the RCN for the work that I did in London, and I always really, really advocate, when those opportunities arise for you, really think it through, and you will have a bit of you going, oh, I don't know, do you really want to do that? And then think, well, if I didn't know, if I don't, what will I be feeling like in a year? Will I have wished I had? And that kind of idea. So it's great to hear you talking about, just leaping into those opportunities.
And it's great that we are talking about different ways of nursing, because so often people get caught in, you've either got to do NHS, community, private, but perhaps don't think about the other opportunities that are out there, things like the RCN, things like doing your volunteering on it, perhaps even working for the NMC, these big professional bodies that need nurses. But as nurses, it's not something that we are encouraged, I would say, to look at. So it's great. I think the nature of the conversation is amazing, especially because lots of your early career nurses will be listening to this and think, actually, I could do that. And having been to the RCN Congress, there are new nurses, early career nurses, who will absolutely smash it. If they chose this route, they would absolutely nail it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, anything is possible. And as Tina said at the start, we can have as many careers as we want. Professional lives are very different now to what they were maybe a couple of generations ago. And so trying your hand at as many different things as possible is definitely worth having a go at. And actually, if it doesn't work out, you can go back. And of course, sometimes it's not as simple as that. There is a calculation to do depending on the support structures you have and kind of financial stability and family life. There's always a calculation, but I think if you can make it work, try and grab those opportunities as they come.
Yeah. And when you were speaking, I had a picture come into my head, because I think we have this kind of idea of a career ladder. So I'm quite intrigued to know what you both think about this, really. But, you know, it's presented to us in the early part of our career. There's a career ladder, especially NHS wise, you know, this band and then this band and then this band. And this is the trajectory should you wish to climb this ladder. But actually, now you're both talking and thinking about it in the moment, I'm wondering whether it's more like a career maze. Because I think sometimes nurses imagine, and you hear this a lot, so apologies to our listeners if you've said this, but I hear a lot nurses say, like, I'm looking for my dream job, or my dream job has come up. And I often think in your early 20s, that might feel exactly like your dream job, but maybe in your 30s, you might think, actually, I don't know, have I outgrown that? Is that really my dream job now? So the idea that it's more, and also then nurses not going for something because it's in their mind, not their dream job. It's a kind of, do you know what I mean, an intermediary stage or something. So I'm seeing it a bit like a maze, and you go down one, and this might take you to the middle where the dream thing is, but it actually might take you down a cul-de-sac, but it doesn't mean that's wrong. You could learn a lot by going down that cul-de-sac, turn around, come back, and then find another route. So, I mean, what do you think about the way that nurses in general feel about the ways that their careers should go? Kendal, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I love your analogy of the maze, and I really agree. And I think I've been quite fortunate to be able to do that without it impacting kind of the rest of my life. And I think it's always important to kind of acknowledge that maybe some people might not be in the position to be able to do that for various different reasons, if they're a carer, etc., etc. But yeah, I mean, I agree. What I was thinking about when you were asking that question was how this might be a controversial statement, but I actually think the NHS is more hierarchical than the military, which is astounding if you think about it. And so yes, I think it is, the traditional thought is that one should go in as a band 5 and work your way up those bands, and kind of your career path is very laid out in front of you, but actually we have the ability to move horizontally, move down if that's where your passion and your circumstances allow you to, because as you say, you grow as a human, and that might mean that in the next 2 transitions time you get to jump 2 rungs maybe, but actually it's not all about jumping rungs. It's about finding where your skill sets are best used, and that's probably actually another reason why I did come across to the RCN, because I really like working on big, knotty strategic problems, and I feel like that's where my experience and skills are best used. And so that's why I followed one of the other reasons why I followed this career path. But finding the place where you find your people and you're able to use your skills really effectively is where you're going to be able to get the most enjoyment from work, which is, you know, we spend a lot of time doing it. We should try and find something that we enjoy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about what you do now, about who early careers nurses are, because I think that it makes people ask questions. Well, what is an early career nurse, and has it kind of changed over the years as we as a profession have evolved?
Yeah. So what I do now is look after the Early Career Nurses Network at the RCN, which actually I haven't mentioned. And that is because I told you that my job was the professional lead for acute and emergency care and defence nursing. But I additionally look after the Early Career Nurse Network at the RCN. This used to be called the Newly Registered Nurses Network, and we've recently rebranded it and renamed it, and that's because it allows us to kind of try and support nurses for a bit longer. We newly registered nurses, for many people, will be up to kind of the 18-month point, but we actually have identified from listening to the membership that people need a bit more support for a bit longer time. So we've gone for early career, which we say is up to 5 years, but in my opinion is that you are in your early career or you are a newly registered nurse, as long as you consider yourself to be, right? Because some people will develop in the role quicker or slower, depending on a whole load of things. And so I look after that network, which I absolutely love doing. And to actually answer your question, who are they? They are all different types of humans, because we find that people come into nursing in particular kind of later in their career or first thing from school. And so we're catering for a whole host of individuals. And we just find that you're giving a great deal of support, hopefully, as a student, but actually sometimes that really drops off once you're on the register and you're kind of pushed out into the ward, as I'm sure you all know, and you're kind of expected to kind of swim, but it doesn't always feel like you are. And so the network tries to provide peer support for early career nurses. So we kind of enhance the voice of early career nurses, both within the college, the RCN, and within the wider nursing community. We do that in lots of different ways, and we're kind of testing a few different options in how we do that. But we run a whole series of webinars. We have a social media following. We're trying to set up a mentoring scheme and maybe a leadership program, and with working, in fact, that would be run by a different part of the RCN, the Leadership Academy. But there's lots of things in scope for that really diverse part of our membership. And I can see that hopefully the early career nurses network will really evolve as the years come, because I think, well, we all know that we need to support the future of the workforce, right?
And so, listeners, this is how Kendal and I met, because obviously we have exactly the same goals in terms of support. And you'll hear us talking about networking and how important it is to meet other people, because sometimes it's why work on something alone when you can share ideas and move more swiftly to a happier conclusion, because that's what we all want, isn't it? We all want support at the end of the day. So so that's how Kendal and I met.
That's really good, isn't it? And I wonder, having worked with the Royal College's kind of leadership and development arm years and years ago, so I would imagine I'm a bit out of date on that. But even back then, and we've talked about this before, Kate, when Angie Titchin and Alison Binney wrote a book called Freedom to Practice. It was all about developing yourself in practice alongside academic knowledge and the knowledge of the lived experience of the senior nurses around you. And I'm thinking about that. What if you're listening to this and you are not in the early part of your career? What can you do to support people who are? And this idea that nurses are floundering when they come out of their 3 years, and it's a bit like, it's like, once all of a sudden you've not got your learner plates on your car anymore, and you just got to go and drive it. It's a really weird feeling at first. And, I've had nurses who have said it's like learning to swim and somebody just throws you armbands. It's not that helpful. You're still not swimming well when you're trying to put your armbands on. But a better analogy is like, get in the pool with me and show me how to swim, or ask me to sit on the side and show me, how to stay afloat. And I guess a good question for the more experienced nurses who listen to the podcast is, are you still able to do that? Have you still got that mental ability to see that learner nurse, that early career nurse for what they are? And do you remember what that felt like for you? Because I think it's so easy, the more senior and strategic we become, to really forget that really uncertain, not yet fully confident feeling that you have when you're at the very beginning. And it's one of Kate's and my aims, is to get that set of nurses understanding the power of their lived experience and all the things that they can do to make that transition really great for those early career nurses. So is any work happening around that sort of idea, Kendal?
Working with more experienced nurses. Well, I guess there is work on preceptorship, which is not really the same thing, is it? If I'm honest, I am not doing any work on that. I guess a mentoring scheme, which is in the pipeline, might address that somewhat. And my thoughts on what you were saying was something actually I was thinking about earlier when I was thinking about what are they going to ask me today, is that I don't think it's really great empathizing and kind of asking your early career nurses, are you okay? Do you understand this? Do you need help with this? But I think there is also something in just asking about them and like knowing about their life. I found it really astounding so as an army nurse, you work within the NHS when you are at home in order to keep your skills up. And it might have been because I was a mother, so we literally wear a different uniform and go into NHS hospital. But I was always amazed that like I think people knew my name, and that was probably it. And I know we're working on busy wards or within busy EDs or busy places, but taking the time to find out about the individual and their circumstances and what drives them and what they do after work and who they go home to is a really important part of that kind of mentorship and actually just being a good teammate and a good colleague, because if we know all those things, we are able to support them, because it's not just their kind of technical skills as a nurse that we need to nurture, is it? If someone is having a hard time at home, we also need to try and support them in that way too. And I think because nursing has been so busy for so long, we kind of haven't prioritized that as much. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah. Something came to mind when you were saying that, actually, which is years ago, I saw the most beautiful thing, which was on a ward that was for people living with dementia. And they used the This Is Me biographical kind of paperwork, or it was paper at the time, actually, where they were trying to find out about patients. So they try and find out about, their biography, what they were interested in, the things they liked. And the staff had done it for themselves. So when you walked on that ward, the first thing you saw was a notice board, and it would say, Tina, staff nurse, favourite biscuit bourbon, likes to sea swim and walk her dog called Boo. Just a few things about the staff nurse and the healthcare assistant and the cleaner, and they all have a similar sort of thing. And it just was a brilliant starting place. And you think it's great for the families because you're saying, look, these are humans too. But also for staff who came along, it was great because these were conversation starters. And like you absolutely say, we're in the people business, but sometimes you wouldn't think we were, would you? Sharing on that level. So yeah, it really resonated with me when you said that, actually. What do you think, Kate?
I really like that idea. And it's interesting as well, because many moons ago, and I am going back a long time, so A&E is my background. We knew everything about each other, about our families, our likes, all of those things. And we would go out after work because we could, because time and circumstances were different, and we would have downtime in a shift where we would sit, we would chat. Obviously, the cleaning would be done and all of that kind of stuff. When it was, we would sit and we would have conversations and make and develop friendships, but that doesn't happen anymore. So I do wonder if it's a lot of it is circumstantial in that it's not. It's that time factor. But that also, said,
Kate, sorry, yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, but that said, when I was ward managing, I made a point of knowing my staff, knowing whether they'd got partners, husbands, significant others, had they got children, because it made my job so much easier to understand where they were coming from. So
Yeah.
in actual fact, and it was busy, and it's still busy, is we've just got to make that conscious decision to ask those questions. So it is possible to do it.
Yeah. Sorry. And I was thinking just about a task we could give all our listeners, which is when you're on your break, and I know this might be a rare treat, but when you're on your break, I know you're trying to sort of eat your sandwiches quickly, but do not go on your phone. Because you can quickly look at your phone to make sure nobody's phoned you in an emergency. But I go into staff rooms, and I am in lots of different buildings as part of my coaching job. And I will sit there in silence for half an hour. My intention to go in the staff room has been to go and get to know everybody and let them know I'm not really scary. I'm just quite a nice person, actually. But what I observe is 6 people on their phone who come for half an hour, eat, be on their phone, and then leave. That's the place where you used to get to know each other, where you talked about what you'd watched on the telly and whether anybody was going to watch the Lionesses at the weekend type of thing. That's where that happened. And now there's this silent place where we're all on our social media. So my challenge to our listeners is connect and build rapport with your colleagues. So do not take your phone into the staff room, because honestly it's such a learned behavior, and it's something that I think is another space and time, Kate, where kind of this connect could happen, really.
Kendal, with that, she's like, oh God, she's going to ask me a question. What advice do you wish you'd had when you first qualified, or what advice would you give to your newly qualified / early career nurses?
I think that it probably draws on all the things we've already spoken about. So be inquisitive and ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think there's also something around people not wanting to show that they don't know things, and so maybe they don't ask questions because they don't want to kind of let people know that they don't know the answer to it. But actually, we all know that you don't know what you don't know, and when you're new, everything is daunting, and it's useful to ask questions because it makes you safe at the end of the day. So be inquisitive, ask questions both about your practice, but also about what other people do with their careers, because lots of people will be maybe working part-time and doing other things with their time, and that might give you some inspiration. And take opportunities as they come. And I guess maybe to a certain extent look for those opportunities. So if you know, like I did, that I loved my job, but I wanted to do something a bit more strategic or national, look maybe at the RCN. We've got lots and lots and lots of voluntary member roles that you can get involved with. Or if you know that you want to give back a little, you could look at voluntary work within your community. There's lots of things that you can do with your nursing skills that might not necessarily open opportunities now, but they will open opportunities in the future, but also just make you more satisfied in your life and your role. So be inquisitive, ask questions both about your clinical role, people's career paths and their personal lives, as we've just discussed, and also take opportunities as they come, where your situation allows.
Fantastic advice. Excellent, thank you. So Kendal, we are going to let you sort of have the last word as such before we say cheerio. Is there anything that you came into this conversation wanting to say that you haven't had a chance to talk about?
I wonder. I've got to think of something really good now, haven't I?
Or you can just say, no, it's fine. So you could do either.
No, I think we've actually covered everything that I thought about. I think there's probably also something in what we spoke about at the very beginning, which is kind of believe in yourself and believe in you can do that thing that you secretly thinking about for all this time, and you don't know. You maybe don't know how to get it off the ground, or you don't have the confidence to do it, but believe that you can, and give it a go, because really you can always go back to your other job if it doesn't work out. And as you both have said, I think throughout this conversation, you'll learn loads doing it, and you'll have no regrets.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Kendal, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you with us.
And I will pop sort of bits and bobs in the show notes, Kendal. So I'll certainly put about the Wild Extreme Medicine link there, and anything else you want me to, we'll chat afterwards, and I'll make sure it's all there for our listeners. So we'll pop the links to Kendal in the show notes for everybody. So thank you as well, Kendal, for me. Fantastic conversation. And it just leaves me to say,
you've been listening to A Nurse's Lift to Work with Kate and Tina. Please remember,
Kate,
this is not a replacement for medical treatment or
Thanks
help.
so much.
So do seek assistance if you need to.
Thank you for joining us. Please do like, subscribe, give us stars, like and share with your friends and colleagues. All the good things.